could we talk about another type of disparity which has been discussed in New Zealand media, and that's the ethnic wealth gap. I'm really interested in your views about this as someone who has created and is investing wealth. So just for a bit of context, according to Statistics New Zealand, the wealth of the average Pākehā is 138,000, and all of the other ethnic groups are much further behind, and right at the bottom of the list is Pasifika. The average Pasifika has 15,000 in wealth, which means that the gap between Pākehā and Pasifika is 123,000. So you are the director of a multi-million-dollar investment group. What do you think needs to change to close that gap?
Well, I think the challenge for us is the actual solutions are with the Pacific communities, because part of it is a complete change in the way that we look at the world. We are, again, a society that is feudal in nature. You know, if you look at our structures, we rely on the chiefs, title holders, and church ministers to make a lot of our decisions. And you know, it doesn't allow for a lot of innovation and a lot of new ideas coming in. So that the ability to change is a tough one for Pacific. So that means we've got to change how we think, because we don't have high levels of financial literacy. We don't have a lot of savings. We don't make too many comments about the economy or finance. But all of those things add up to why you would change your behaviour. Because if I knew a lot more about savings, if I knew a lot more about investments, if I take a view on the prices in the local shops, if I take a view on my wage packet, you know, people say, well, you don't have any finance experience. No, everyone's got finance experience. You just have to look at what happens in your daily life. I'm going to make a comment about prices, my income, mortgages, interest rates. So that builds a wealth of knowledge that means that you can start to make informed decisions. But if you don't look at those things, you're always going to be in the dark. And so if I look at my journey through university and, you know, what I've learned is I've learned a lot from other people, non-Pacific. And, you know, I think that's a good thing. We can't get all the good ideas from ourselves. And so I'll be able to look outside in and go, well, actually, what are the changes? We actually need to ramp up the education system, and the education system needs to be tweaked to represent real life circumstances. Like, you can go through the whole 5 years of secondary school and not learn anything about financial literacy. You know, you don't have an investment strategy. Whereas I look at the students that my son's with at Canterbury University, they've already linked into Sharesies. They're already putting $10, $20 into the share market. You know, they went to the bank and started looking at their flat for next year, but they were investigating how to buy the house. You know, these aren't things that our Pacific groups would normally think about. But I think the other thing about it is, you know, wealth is generated over generations. And we can't forget that either. Like, you know, how Europeans have got wealthy is because their parents buy a house, they then, when they pass away, they divvy up the house to their kids. There's an asset there they can build on, then the next generation can build on that asset. And it's over time that you accumulate these assets. But we are quick we take a feast and famine approach to our finances. And we've got some money today and we've got some whakalaves, we will spend it. And we all know that we don't save a lot. But actually, if we thought about it, that's the only way that we can build wealth over time is if we have to have a savings program. But the other thing is we have to earn more money. So we're heavily entrenched in the lowest paid jobs, entry-level jobs, retail, hospitality, security. And again, it's a dollars for hours type wage, which doesn't give you exponential growth. So when you own the business, and that's why I'm encouraging everyone to, you know, we can jump over a whole lot of the institutional barriers if we're in the private sector. Economies and communities offshore who have done well with you know, reasonably disadvantaged communities, but once they are hooked onto the private sector, they run small businesses, they can jump over the barriers of racism, institutional racism, because people just want the products and services. So I'm a great supporter of the private sector, but we don't talk about the private sector. It's almost bad to talk about money in the Pacific. And so that holds us back a little bit. Whereas what we want to do is hold up the people who've got business. Because if I look at my instance and my cousins, His daughter's a chef, Monique Fiso, who's got a high-end chef business. He runs a reasonable business himself. He's employed all of his brothers and sisters, his cousins. Same with us. We've employed ours. And what you find is that when Pacific people own their own businesses, they tend to pay more than the average. They tend to look after those people that they've got because they're generally family and relations. So you've got this well-being that's created from people owning their own destiny, rather than working for someone else who normally, when there's a redundancy, there's a lockdown, who gets cut first? It's the Pacific.
Fiso, there's so many nuggets in there that I want to I want to explore further, but we've got to take a break. Yes. But when we come back, let's explore these themes further.